I read somewhere that it was inspired by your nomadic lifestyle and the importance of relationships that you learned through that lifestyle. So I would imagine that it is probably even more challenging to maintain deep connections when you travel a lot. Or how is that?
Yeah, and I definitely didn't. You're right. It is difficult. But where the inspiration, the story of how it was truly created. I did have a partner. We dated for just over a year, and I don't drink coffee, so I love chai, and we're both health nuts. So she would always add little things to the chai of whatever, maybe some extra turmeric and some supplements. And I love plants and understanding how they work within our bodies. And so there was this one aphrodisiac that I did some research, and when I bought it, I'm like, I tried it. I had about 20 grams of it, which is 20 times the amount per serving here, and she had a lot as well. And there's no psychoactive effects of it, but after we had sex, I told her I felt like I was a tree growing through her, and she felt like roots going into the ground.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, wow, this thing works. And it also tasted like nutmeg. And I was like, this would actually kind of be a really good base for a chai. And so then as I started doing more research, I spoke with different biochemists and food scientists, then we kind of started getting the proper formulation. But really, her inspiration, our relationship was really the inspiration. And that's where also what I definitely learned from that relationship is how important ritual is. And I think having something that you and your partner just do daily, even if it's a really simple thing that takes less than 5 seconds, but I think that really strengthens a bond.
Yeah, there's something very spiritual in rituals, I feel.
Sure.
And sacral, of course, alludes to sacredness. So I think this is all kind of probably, I would say, also in the spiritual kind of area, right? And I think there's also something you said that this chai is about physical and emotional heart health, which I think is a very beautiful way of saying it. And I see here that there's something like a tree. You mentioned the tree.
Exactly. That's where the branding came from. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So it helps us grow our heart connections.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that if anyone has had very connected lovemaking, it is, there's something sacred about it. It becomes very meditative, and it's kind of bringing you closer to that realm. So I think that's what a lot of this is guiding people to.
Yeah, different and like a different level of consciousness or
Right.
an experience. So we were talking about rituals and health, and you said like health, I mean, it is the number one priority, I would believe, for most, if not all people. But where did you discover, or how, I mean, health also with sports, right? And athleticism, of course, it has a whole different importance, I would imagine, than maybe someone else who is not so much into sports. But where did that journey start for you, the focus on...
Well, I mean, it just was from being an athlete, and I was from 5 years old. My mom put me into gymnastics, so I was competing and doing backflips, and that was my life. And so I think gymnastics is a great base for all sports as a kid, and then I excelled in track and field. But I think health, it's pretty simple to understand, right? Like, I think what's the proverb? It's like, a healthy man wants 1,000 things, and a sick man wants one.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where we understand, right? Like, if our health is taken away, we can't do anything. And this is I don't know if this is true or not. I read somewhere that divorced people will live 4 years less than people that have not been divorced.
Oh.
So all of the things that we are doing for longevity, it seems like that's a pretty important one to have a happy marriage and happy relationship. So that's where, obviously we can drink whatever we drink for health, but if we don't also address our heart health, our emotional health, and that's where the relationships, and that's I think it kind of ties into our health, because if our mental health and our emotional health is not there as well, that's not fun.
And I think especially in today's world, I think there's a lot of kind of research also around the loneliness, right? People getting more and more lonely. Then there's a lot of technology that seems to be taking over. So it is very important to create a balance which helps us connect from the heart and for the heart.